welcome to this week's episode of Did Shakespeare. My name is Cassidy Cash. It's still Christmas time, and I'm not ready to take down the decorations yet. How about you? William Shakespeare would have still had his decorations up this time of year as well, though he wouldn't have had a tree like we do. In fact, for William Shakespeare, the heart of the Christmas season actually started on Christmas Day, and they would celebrate for the 12 days thereafter, culminating in a huge 12th night celebration on January 5th, right before the 12th day of Christmas, January 6th, also known as Epiphany. The lower classes of England would often extend the Christmas season in both directions past this 12-day marker, and you may recognize Twelfth Night as one of Shakespeare's plays. That production was performed as part of the Christmas celebrations at Whitehall Palace, but wait! Some astute Shakespearean scholars might protest here that Twelfth Night was performed in February before the Inns of Court, and isn't that well after the Christmas season? Well, here's a little bit of history about why this holiday favorite was not misplaced by its February performance. In early modern England, there were variations on the length of the season depending on your social status. So the Christmas play season for some stretched all the way from November 1st all the way out to February 2nd of the next year, which is Candlemas. The Inns of Court, where Twelfth Night was performed, followed the extended season, starting in November and not wrapping things up until February. So the Candlemas celebration was the last day before the fields were tilled, and England prepared for Lent. And so when Shakespeare was performing Twelfth Night at the Inns of Court in February, he was wrapping up the Christmas season with one final 12th night revelry. This week, we're going to outline some ways that Shakespeare celebrated these 12 days of Christmas, including performing his signature holiday extravaganza that is Twelfth Night, the play. And all of these tidbits of Elizabethan history are things you can try out at home to bring some Shakespeare into your house this holiday season. You can see the show notes for links below this video to all of the instructions and game instructions that you can use to bring these out of this video and into your home, with recipes and other things that you can do these for yourself. For all of the ideas we'll cover here. Remember, as I outline these 12 days of Christmas for you, that I'm assigning these activities to each day because a 12-day countdown is a whole lot of fun. And if you want to kind of celebrate along with Shakespeare and have a Shakespearean 12 days of Christmas this year at your house, it's easier to do when you have an assignment for each day. But for William Shakespeare, these were not assigned this way. These 12 days have been arbitrarily chosen by me, and that's just to make it easier for you to do, not because they were assigned in any kind of way or order when Shakespeare was doing it. Okay, so here we go. On the first day of Christmas, Shakespeare gave to me a Yule Log. The Yule Log was a giant round log that was lit to mark the start of the holiday season. For some, it also marked a ceremonious beginning to the end of work and the start of revelry that was a theme for the 12 days of Christmas. The log was kept burning the entire 12 days of Christmas, and a piece of this log would be saved to start a fire for next year's log. Now, when we say log, it could be up to an entire tree trunk, where, it had to burn for 12 days. This was a massive, massive log. And it was thought that it was good luck to use a piece of this log as kindling for the next year. This was a tradition that would come over from England to the new colonies in America. George Washington is said to have celebrated the Christmas season with a Yule log, and he celebrated the entire 12 days of Christmas, even marrying his wife on Twelfth Night. And some say he used to have a grand celebration to mark Twelfth Night and his anniversary. While it's unclear where the tradition started originally, the Christian feast of Christmas included the Yule log as a symbol of the battle between good and evil. The quote says, "As the fire grew brighter and burned hotter, and as the log turned into ashes, it symbolized Christ's final and ultimate triumph over sin." So the Yule log was a Christian symbol for Christmas, the Christian holiday. Second day of Christmas. Apple wassail was a part of celebrating Twelfth Night, which we talk about in our episode with Francois Leroc on That Shakespeare Life. We take a look at Twelfth Night and all of the Elizabethan traditions that can be found in that play, as well as the real historical traditions the bard would have used to celebrate the holiday. You can check out the show notes for a link to that episode. But wassailing was the act of going from house to house singing in what is comparable to Christmas carols today, and they often took with them or received from the house a traditional apple wassail beverage, which is why for the second day of Christmas, Christmas, I recommend that you make a traditional apple wassail beverage. And I have a recipe as well as a video tutorial you can use to practice your own apple wassail at home. Find the link to that in the show notes for this episode. Day number 3, bean cake. Say what? Well, you may actually remember the idea of a bean cake from celebrations of Mardi Gras here in the United States, where it's traditionally called a king cake. This tradition has morphed over the years and moved over into Mardi Gras celebrations, but it's the same idea. You have a cake and you bake it, and for Shakespeare's time, there would be a bean or a pea that was baked into the cake and hidden somewhere in it, and you would serve this giant cake that could make up to like 100 slices, and you would cut it all up and you would serve it to everyone in the house or everyone attending the celebration. And that included the servants as well as strangers or passersby that had stopped at the house on their travels for some respite. And anyone, no matter their station or whether they were a stranger or not, if they got a slice of cake that had this special piece in it, they were treated as the royalty for the day, and they got to enjoy all of the benefits that they could be provided. They got respect from other people, they got to be in charge, and other special benefits that were not traditional to lower stations. And this idea of role reversal, or being able to participate in things that were traditionally above your station all the other days of the year, was a very special part of 12th Night and 12th Day of Christmas celebrations. It was a theme of the entire Christmas season. So making a bean cake and getting to treat whoever gets the special piece to royalty for a day. They get to be king for a day. So that's a wonderful tradition to have for your day 3. Day 4 of the 12 days of Christmas is the Lord of Misrule. This is a very uniquely 16th century tradition for Christmas. The Lord of Misrule was generally someone who was appointed to be in charge of the Christmas revelries, and that often included a great deal of drinking and a great deal of wild partying. These were not somber, little subdued events. These were often very wild and crazy, where anything could occur, and which is probably why the king cake tradition slid over into Mardi Gras, which traditionally has that sort of theme and reputation today. But for the 12 days of Christmas and the Christmas season under William Shakespeare, the Lord of Misrule was in charge of basically the manager of the chaos. You can think of him as like a ringmaster at a circus. The custom was actually abolished by Henry VIII in 1541, restored by Mary I, his daughter, and then abolished again by her sister, Queen Elizabeth I. So it kind of was there, and then it's not, and then it's back again, and now it's gone again. And that meant that for the general populace, it was kind of sparsely here and there people did it, and it does show up in Shakespeare's play Twelfth Night. In the Tudor period, John Stowe wrote the Survey of London in 1603. It was actually published first in 1598 and then again in 1603. So it represents kind of a slice of that time period. And he describes the Lord of Misrule this way. In the feast of Christmas, there was in the king's house, whosoever he was lodged, or wheresoever he was lodged, a lord of Misrule, or master of the merry disports. And the like had ye in the house of every noble man, or honor, or good worship, where he spiritual or temporal, among the which the mayor of London and either of the shriffs had their several lords of misrule, ever contending without quarrel or offense, who should make the rarest pastimes to delight the beholders. These lords, beginning their rule on All Hallows Eve, continued the same till the morrow after the Feast of Purification, commonly called Candlemas Day. And so he's outlining that the Lord of Misrule got to reign for this long extended period we talked about earlier of November 1st through February 2nd. The Lord of Misrule is also referred to by Philip Stubbs in his book as a grand captain of mischief. And then he gives a description of the way that they dress, which includes very colorful outfits with bells on their legs, and they go into the church dancing and swinging their handkerchiefs, even if the minister was currently giving a sermon. So it's the idea of disrupting this calm, sacred event with revelry and delight. And that was the entire concept behind the Lord of Misrule. By the 17th century, Puritanism had taken over England and was in charge under people like Oliver Cromwell. And they did away with Christmas entirely. And that included specifically outlawing the entire concept of Lord of Misrule. And it wouldn't make a comeback, unfortunately. This Lord of Misrule died away. So if you would like to add some chaos and revelry, colorful clothes, and dancing about with bells to your Christmas holiday season, day 4 of the 12 Days of Christmas would be a great time to give it a try and bring back this delightful, if chaotic, Christmas tradition from Shakespeare's lifetime. Day 5, go see the play Twelfth Night. It is a really great example of a lot of different themes from the Christmas holiday season that Shakespeare would have celebrated. And it's a great conversation piece because a lot of the ways that William Shakespeare celebrated Christmas, we don't do today. We don't have, we're all about peace on earth and goodwill towards men, Christmas trees and lights and general calmness, silent night, and all is calm, all is bright. For Shakespeare, there were a lot more chaotic themes and loud and contradictory things. And so when you go see the play Twelfth Night, the concept of a Lord of Misrule, pay attention to the cross-gartered stockings and the yellow. All of those things are themes from the actual holiday that Shakespeare would have used in his celebration. So it's really a great time to go and watch Twelfth Night, the play. Interestingly, Hamlet is also a very good Christmas play, and you can look below in the feed of our videos here on YouTube to find out why that one should also be on your Christmas holiday movie list. Day 6 is the kissing bough. We think about kissing under the mistletoe now, but for William Shakespeare's lifetime, it was a kissing bough, and this was a combination of a bunch of different herbs and leaves that would be put together either into a bough or into a globe, and it would be hung up, and anyone who got caught under it, not necessarily a guy with a girl or your romantic partner, it would be any two people that got caught under there would embrace, not kiss, interestingly, but they would hug or greet one another in celebration of the holiday season. So the kissing bough is something that you can hang up in your home. Day 7, mincemeat pies. This is a whole lot of fun because recently there was a news article about an American that tried to do a mincemeat pie and got it wrong and ended up making a ground beef pie, and they got made fun of by people in England. I would like to redeem the American reputation for mincemeat pies just a bit here. The modern day mincemeat pie that consists mostly of dried fruits and sugar and alcohol is a modern convention. For William Shakespeare, these mincemeat pies were in fact made of meat. We think of them as having sweet apples, raisins, and cinnamon, but for Shakespeare, they were full of things like mutton and beef, and they were very hearty. They were a lot like a stew that you baked into a pie. Mincemeat pies get their name from the fact that the filling was cut up very small, so chopped very finely, and at least from the Middle Ages, they included some kind of meat. It was either mutton or beef or chicken or even like tongue, rump steak, and you would put other things in there like dried fruit, oil, fat, citrus peel, sugar, spices, and of course, alcohol. The change to it being a sweet confection, more like what Americans would think of as fruitcake, is a relatively recent creation. The recipes for Christmas mincemeat pies from Lady Eleanor Fetty Place are savory, rich, and fruity, but they're not that much sweet. Now, these date to within Shakespeare's lifetime, and they're actually meat pies baked without any extra liquid. They're spiced a whole lot, and they have rose water and alcohol poured in them, and they were designed to be eaten as like a small treat that you might pick up and hold in your hand like a cupcake, rather than sitting down at the table and eating them like you would think of at a formal dinner table. There's a great recipe for how to make an authentic Shakespearean mincemeat pie from the Folger Shakespeare Library that I'll link to in the comments so you can try it out. Or come back next week because we're going to use this one for our celebrations here on Did Shakespeare to mark the 12 Days of Christmas by trying our hand at making a mincemeat pie the 16th century way. So like and subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the notification bell and you can cook it along with us next Saturday. Day 8 is carol singing. There are tons of versions of songs from the 16th century that you could use to mark the holiday season, and often these were sung while drinking wassail. Actually, the word wassail means both the drink, to drink it, as well as to sing carols. That's why one famous Christmas carol we have today says, "A wassailing we will go." People traveled from house to house singing carols in hopes that they would be given some of the extra ale and bread that had been set aside for travelers and the poor. Which brings us to day 9, beer and bread for the poor. Being charitable to the poor was a part of the Christmas season for William Shakespeare. Being charitable to the poor was a part of the Christmas season for William Shakespeare. In Elizabethan England, it was customary during the Christmas season to feed and give drink to any of the passers-by. There were foods, particularly extra ale and bread, that had been specifically made and set aside for this purpose to be given to anyone who stopped as a traveler and needed nourishment. Wassailing and singing carols at someone's door was a kind of way to beg for this kind of food. It was letting you know, I'm here, I'm hungry, I would like something to eat. And the wassail bowl, which is kind of like a punch bowl, was served as this community bowl for this reason. Anyone who wanted something to drink could take something out of it. And the apple wassail recipe I linked to earlier actually contained about 3 different kinds of alcohol and is a very spiced drink. When you try it, you feel warm and cozy when you drink it. It's just very spicy, very warm. And of course, it has a good bit of alcohol in it. So in the cold English winters, this was a very welcome, very warming, almost medicinal beverage to have. Day 10 is games, whether it was card games, board games, or group games like Hoodman's Blind. The playing of games was a huge part of the celebratory season for William Shakespeare. I particularly like the game of Naughty and Maw, which we have added to our family traditions of Christmas now that we know how to play them. And you can find videos to how to play them in the feed on our channel. We've gone over Naughty, Maw, and the Philosopher's Game that you can watch and how to play. And of course, I've linked to those below the video. Day 11, decorate with leaves. Okay, well, with different kinds of plants. Shakespeare may not have had a Christmas tree, but he did decorate for the holiday season with a lot of plants, including bay, laurel, ivy, and holly. The decorations were kept in place throughout the holiday season, all the way up to the end of these 12 days of Christmas. Stowe's survey of London from the early 17th century says that, quote, every man's house and also their parish churches were decked with holm, ivy, bays, and whatsoever the season of the year afforded to be green. The conduits and the standards in the streets were likewise garnished. The conduits and the standards in the middle of the street was where the town would get their water. It was basically a community well. And they would decorate the town and everywhere with whatever plants were in the neighborhood that were still green and could be hung up and look nice. Day 12, host a large feast. The highlight of the holiday season was hosting a large feast where all manner of animal, plants, and sweets would be served. Often entire animals like a whole deer, a whole pig, or even large geese would be decorated, stuffed, and displayed as part of the feast. There were an unlimited supply of drink and libation, along with specialty sugar treats like marchpane and cakes that people enjoyed. So it's a great time of year to invite everyone over and have a big meal. All of these things are ways you can celebrate the 12 days of Christmas and extend your holiday season all the way into the first week of January or February 2nd, if you feel so inclined, and have your holiday season filled with all of the revelry, mischief, frivolity, and merriment, just like William Shakespeare. Until next time, I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye, and Merry Christmas!